They say in space no one can hear you scream, but can they hear you moo? Today on this episode of Fresh from the Cellar, a series where I preview new and upcoming board games, we're going to be talking about what may be the coziest game to ever take place in space, and certainly the first one to breach the subject of space cows. It's Tend. Tend is the newest game from Ivy Studio. It's an action ride game on a massive scale, it's absolutely dripping with theme, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. So if you want to know more about Tend, then might I suggest... Hi, I'm Alex from Might I Suggest a Game, a channel devoted to helping you find your perfect board game, and on today's episode of Fresh from the Cellar, we're going to be trying our hand at space farming and talking all about this new game called Tend. Tend is an idyllic, planetary farming themed roll and ride, or flip and ride, or blank and ride game, whatever you want to call it, for 1 to 6 players from Ivy Studio, who helped sponsor this video. Once you've made it all the way through this video and you know everything there is to know about Tend, you can go and check out their Kickstarter campaign, which you can find at the link in the description below, and while you're there, don't forget to hit subscribe and that little bell button so you can get notified when I post new content. Anyways, in today's video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of how to play so that you can get the general gist of the game. I'm going to talk about some of the things I liked and maybe some of the things I didn't like about the game, and then I'm going to talk about the types of people that I think would really enjoy this game. My whole goal with all of this is that when you get to the end of this video, you should have a great idea of whether or not you want to get this game. So anyways, let's get into it. Will 10 be the perfect game for you? Let's find out, shall we? In Tend, you'll be playing as space farmers working for the prestigious Zenith Corporation, and your ultimate goal is to craft the perfect homestead on this new alien planet. You'll be carving out your place in the landscape and gathering a wide variety of resources to load up your cargo manifest and ship it back to Zenith headquarters, and whoever can accomplish their goals and put together the best collection of goods over the course of 3 seasons wins. Tend is, at its core, a flip and write game, and this means that every round you'll flip over 5 new tasks that will be available for the whole group to choose from. Each round requires you to choose the actions on 2 different cards from the task row and resolve them on your own player sheet. And everyone at the table will be resolving these actions simultaneously, so you don't have to worry about your action getting taken by someone else. There's only 4 main actions that you can take, so let's knock them out one at a time. The first action is the most open-ended one, and that is the Tend action. When you choose to tend, you'll get to pick one of 3 different choices. You can either till your fields, plant some crops in those tilled fields, or water your existing crops, and this action is important if you want your homestead to produce valuable and recurring goods. I mean, it is the name of the game after all. As with all of these main actions, you can upgrade your Tend action to be able to take more than one option later in the game, but you'll have to work your way up to that. On your farm, you can also fence in some areas to start your herd of space cows, or space chickens, or even space sheep. And having animals is a great way to generate more income, but it's not technically a part of the Tend action, so I'll leave that for all of you to discover down the road. The next 2 actions are pretty similar in execution, so I'll talk about them at the same time. It's chopping and mining. The base game comes with these really cool scratch-off cards that have the woods on the top and the mines at the bottom. If you take either of these actions, you'll be able to scratch off a space on the respective area and gain the resource from that space. Sometimes that space will give you another chop or mine action, but more than likely it'll give you a resource that you can use this round. You'll have to upgrade your chop and mine actions if you want to excavate efficiently in the bottom half of each of these areas, as it takes 2 chop or mine actions to scratch something off down there. But if you make it to the end, you'll unlock a new fishing spot, which is a great segue to talk about the 4th and final action, fishing. To fish, you'll choose your preferred body of water. At the beginning, you'll only have the pond to fish in, but you can unlock up to 3 more areas throughout the game. And then you'll roll your black and white die. Whatever your result, you'll collect the item from the space that the coordinates point you to, and you've got to be careful because there are spots on every map that are blank, which means you could return from your fishing trip empty-handed. But if you want to improve your chances, you can always upgrade your fishing rod and add some lures to make the fishing action way more valuable and gather some quality goods for your cargo manifest. Speaking of the cargo manifest, let's talk about what you do with all the stuff you can acquire on your turn. When you get a good, whether it's a piece of wood or a coin or a fish or whatever, you gotta spend it before the round is over, and you can do that in one of 4 ways. First off, you can spend it directly on your player sheet to further your progress on the many tracks. Whether it's action upgrades or energy bars that can get you extra actions, or even badges to earn you endgame bonuses, it's always good to spend some of your stuff making sure that you can get more stuff later. Next, you can always sell your goods to the corporate commissary to get some quick cash. Coins are an important way to unlock some key items on your board, so especially at the beginning of the game, you'll want to shell out to improve your engine as soon as possible. Next, you can start adding things to your cargo manifest, and seeing as your goal is to send back back the best collection of samples to Zenith HQ, this one is super important as well. Almost every good has a polyomino shape associated with it, and you'll have to puzzle piece those together in your cargo manifest to score you the most points and even earn you extra actions. Plus, you get to use these really cool custom stamp markers that come with the game. What a treat! Anyways, the cargo manifest is where the majority of your endgame points are going to come from, so make sure you're paying attention to this throughout the whole game. And lastly, well, you could do something nice and give a resource to your neighbor. But don't worry, there's something in it for you too. At the beginning of each round, you'll have 2 neighbor bonus cards, one to your right and one to your left, that act as orders that you can fulfill throughout the game. If you produce a resource that's on one of those cards, instead of spending it on your board, you can complete the neighbor bonus. Your neighbor will get that good at the beginning of the next round, but you will get the neighbor rewards immediately, which can give you some hard to find resources that can really boost your engine. You'll also score some points at the end of the game based on how much better of a neighbor you were than the people next to you, so in this game it really pays to give things away. Anyways, you'll keep taking turns simultaneously, choosing 2 actions per round and scoring the different season objectives at the ends of rounds 5, 9, and 12, and at the end of that final round, you'll count up your points from those objectives, the 3 areas of your cargo manifest, as well as neighbor points and points from completed badges, and whoever has the most points wins. Anyways, that's pretty much all you need to know about the gameplay, so let's jump into my initial thoughts on Tend. Here's what I think about Tend. First off, as someone who loves a good combo, I really enjoy being able to see how different actions helped you gain different resources, which in turn unlock new opportunities on your board, and I just found myself getting lost in all the different possible combos. It really reminded me of another combo-y roll and write game about farming called Three Sisters, which I love, but it even took that to the next level. I think that's a common theme with most Ivy Studio games, is that they're not afraid to push the boundary of what a game can be and say, why not more? Which in this case, I think really works in their favor. Speaking of more, this game is not left wanting in the slightest in the production department. I mean, between the beautiful art, the amazing scratch-off cards, and the tokens to go with them, and the custom markers that double as stamps, I mean, are you kidding me? They really threw everything at the wall on this one. It seems like everything stuck. I mean, there were several times while I was playing with folks when we just had to stop and marvel at the sheer scope of this game, and having that with a flip and right is wild. But anyways, going back to the gameplay, one of the things I loved the most about Tend was how each task felt really intuitive. I mean, of course you have to till the fields before you can plant your seeds there, and of course you can improve your catch rate if you add a fishing lure. Even though there's a ton going on your player sheets, the game helps you understand what to do and how to do it really effectively, and that is no small feat for a game of this scale. Plus, because the natural progression of your actions makes so much sense, it leaves more room to make decisions about the resources that you gain each round and what to do with them. And speaking of resources, I really liked how the same resources can have different uses as the game goes on. I mean, at the beginning of the game, you gotta sell goods for coins so that you can grab some quick upgrades, but you always have to be paying attention to your progress in the cargo manifest, because if you neglect it for too long, you'll be missing out on some big endgame points. Once you've done all the upgrades that you want to do though, coins become way less valuable, and finding the tipping point of when to switch from coins to cargo is one of the best challenges in the game. And while we're on the subject of cargo, I also love the cargo manifest because I am a sucker for the mental gymnastics of a good polyomino game, and the fact that they just casually snuck in a great Feast for Odin polyomino style puzzle into this game as just like one of these side challenges is crazy work. I mean, it's even got this awesome little positive player interaction loop that's nice enough to make those non-combative folks jump for joy, but competitive enough to make it worth it for those who prefer a head-to-head face-off. I generally find myself somewhere in the middle of the spectrum of board game players, but I thought it was a great element that makes this game accessible to both parties. Oh, and speaking of parties, I didn't even get to mention all of the digital applications that this game is integrated with. It's got a digital scratch-off app that you can use if you run out of scratchers, or if you just want to keep your game table a little bit more tidy, and it's got a party mode app a la Jackbox, where you can create a unique seed so that you can play with an almost infinite amount of remote players and use the same action cards and same objectives. I think both of these ideas are brilliant and really represent the future of what board games can become. Now, I've been talking for a while about all the things I liked about Tend, but there were a few things worth noting that gave me pause and that hopefully will be improved as the game moves toward production. First off, the hardest part in the game for me was keeping track of all the resources you've gathered and spent in a round. It's a terrible feeling to realize a turn too late that you actually had one more coin last round that would have completely changed your whole plan, and in my experience, this happens more often than it should because especially towards the end of the game, players are racking up combos left and right. I'd love to see if they could add in some sort of inventory sheet or resource tracker that could help you make sure you don't forget anything and relieve that feeling of accidentally missing out on something and then wondering for the rest of the night how that could have totally changed the outcome of the game. I mean, not me of course, I would never do that. Anyways, the other factor that I ran into is that, as with any combo heavy game, it's really easy to fall into analysis paralysis, even if that's not your usual style. I think some of it has to do with the point that I mentioned earlier about having to keep tabs on all the stuff you acquired this round, so maybe a tracker would help this out as well. But I also think the player sheets offer that perfect sweet spot of information overload, where you feel like if you just had 5 more minutes, you could really analyze all of your options and choose the most optimal one. But in reality, there's so many options that you'd be there all night. That being said, on the party mode app I mentioned earlier, they've included a round timer countdown, which I love, and if I knew that I only had a certain amount of time to make my decisions, it would certainly help me be more decisive, so it seems like they're already thinking about this one too. All that being said, 10 still kinda blew my mind. I mean, I might have had steam coming out of my ears by the end of the game, but it was totally worth it. I had a great time playing this mega combo-making flippin' right, but this isn't about me. So let's jump into my suggestions where I talk about the types of people that this game would be perfect for. This is who I think Tend would be perfect for. Number 1, if you play video games or board games just to get that surge of dopamine when you hit that perfect combo, and you want to ride that high all night as you see everything you planned out connect just perfectly, then you should check this one out. Number 2, if you love cozy games that make you think, chill games that reward you for helping out your neighbors, or just games that include some adorable space animals, then you should definitely check this one out. And lastly, if you're just looking for the next big flippin' right game that takes everything that the genre has innovated on over the last few years and provides it to the nth degree and on an absolutely massive scale, then might I suggest 10 from IV Studio. Thanks so much for sticking around for today's episode of Fresh from the Cellar. I hope this video gives you a great idea of whether backing Tend is for you. Like I mentioned before, Tend is crowdfunding now, so if you want even more info about this game, don't forget to check out the link to the Kickstarter campaign below. Anyways, thanks so much for everyone who's supported me so far. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep growing this channel and keep helping you find your perfect board game. Once again, this has been a Might I Suggest a Game production, and I'm Alex, your board game sommelier, signing off.